AI is going to be the same in the next few years, but what will differentiate is that the domain knowledge and your creativity and your analytical skills to ask the right questions to AI, get the answers, to prioritize things, and then give it to leadership or give it to teams that actually make decisions. That is going to be a superpower.
Welcome back to CFO Weekly, where we're talking with financial leaders about how to build efficiency in their teams, create time for strategy, and ultimately get results. This podcast is brought to you by Personiv, the trusted leader in finance and accounting outsourcing for over 30 years. See how Personiv's customized solutions can help you streamline your operations with teams that start as small as one. Visit the website at personiv.com to learn more. I'm your host, Megan Weis. Let's jump right in. Today I'm joined by Ashok Manthena, CFO and Chief Finance AI at ChatFin, where he is helping reshape how finance teams operate through the practical use of artificial intelligence. Ashok works closely with CFOs and finance functions across FP&A, treasury, tax, and controllership, helping organizations automate manual work, improve decision-making, and unlock new levels of productivity through AI. He is also a recognized speaker and thought leader focused on the future of AI in finance. In this episode, we'll explore what AI adoption really looks like inside mid-sized and large companies, where finance teams are seeing the greatest value, and how leaders can move from experimentation to meaningful transformation. Welcome, Ashok.
Thanks, Megan. Really nice to be here.
Yeah, nice to have you here. I'm really excited about this conversation. Of course, AI is at the forefront of almost every conversation these days.
That's right. It's everywhere, literally. It's anxiety-inducing sometimes, but there's a lot of excitement as well around. And we're all in the midst of this whole evolution that is going to happen for humankind.
Yeah. I mean, if I just think back to maybe 2 years ago, I think that was the first time I'd heard of ChatGPT. And here we are like 2 years later, and it is literally, AI is doing amazing things.
That's right. I actually started working on AI in finance way before ChatGPT came into picture. And it was different times. When we talked to CFOs about AI, people used to ask, what are neural networks? How does it even work? Now things have changed after ChatGPT. So last 3 years has been totally different. And now I think we are in the peak excitement of AI.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it's going to go in the next 3 years. So as you look back, maybe towards the beginning of your career, was there an early moment when you realized that technology was going to fundamentally change how finance teams work?
I think by the time I started working in finance, there's already amazing ERPs, right? There are tools for planning, there are tools for ERPs, there are tools for AP, AR, everything in there. Once I saw the complexity of finance and accounting processes, I realized you actually need the technology to manage it. Now I think we just take all the ERPs as granted, but the complexity of the human operations and how they actually made it really simple for us. We don't usually think about how data can be stored or what is all the workflows, right? We only think about, can I use this specific ERP and get my things done? So I think technology, it's not a question about whether it's going to change. It's very much needed. And now with AI, I think it's again another big technology leap that is happening at this point of time. Again, the question is about whether it is needed, whether it is transformational. It is actually very much necessity for us to run these complex operations.
And you work with CFOs across multiple finance functions. So what are you hearing most often from mid-sized and large companies when it comes to AI right now? Are people scared? Are they excited, confused? What are you hearing?
I guess it's everything, but at least a discovery problem. What I'm saying is you don't have to tell a person what AI is and what it can do. Already CFOs and all the finance leaders, they have seen the potential of AI in other fields, not in finance, but they have seen it, how it changed our daily lives, even writing emails, writing documents, and how it became easy. And now when they can extrapolate and think about what AI can do to their process, a lot of companies have started experimenting with it. And most of the finance leaders right now are in a position where they're thinking we should start using AI. I don't think in the last 18 months I've met the CFO and they said, we don't want to use AI. They are a little skeptical, but everyone is like, we want to bring in AI at various levels. And the excitement is actually at different levels in different industries and different companies. There are few companies where they're all in and they are building their own products. And we can talk about that, like building internally with AI. And finance teams are doing it. That's the exciting part, right? And there is other end where they are using vendors to get AI into their operations and thinking about how that can introduce efficiency and productivity into their teams. So different spectrums of things happening. Again, internal build. It's a long discussion if the internal build can be sustainable. How can they get all the feedback from the users? If you're just getting feedback from one finance user, how do you get all the feedback to improve that specific application or a product? And if you're a vendor, how are you dealing with security? How are you dealing with the flexibility to actually hyper customize to your need? So those are the questions that are being evolved right now. There are answers for everything, but it now depends on the company, on the CFOs, how they are thinking about AI and how fast they want to implement. That has been a big question now. There are a few CFOs who are in wartime now, not just for their operations, even for usage of AI. I'm sure, Megan, you have spoken to a few of them. They're like, today we should start using AI. Find the ways where we can get all these efficiency gains, find out all the manual tasks that we're doing, see if we can use AI and get those things done. So that kind of a rush is already there in few of the companies, and few of the other companies are actually going in much more calculated way.
Yeah, I used to think that finance was kind of slow to adopt new technology, but these days it almost feels like they're kind of on the forefront when it comes to technology and AI. Do you feel the same, or from what you've seen, are they still pretty slow to adopt and change?
I think few of the companies that I work with, they're really fast. They are going fast, they're making faster decisions to get AI into their process. Once they got AI, they're thinking about how do we expand this or how do we mature the specific capability. So I don't see a differentiation between finance and other functions at this point of time in terms of the speed. But again, some industries I've seen are really slow in adopting AI. It's again, would be technology. For example, if you're using a really good ERP or any of the systems that have good REST APIs, it's really easy for you to integrate AI into those systems. And if you're using little archaic systems, then it gets a little slower. So those are the things that are slowing down a little bit in various industries. But overall, I think we're way ahead in AI adoptions in finance when compared to last year.
And what do you anticipate the benefits are going to be for those that are moving quickly and adopting AI and evolving? What do you think the major benefits are going to be for those companies?
I mean, we all know it's the efficiency gains and more manual work can be done using AI, but those are the benefits that we can get using AI. But what is the benefit of moving actually faster to get this? So, Megan, as you know, I work with mid to large companies, and large companies have more complexity because there are people, there are systems, there are processes, there's compliance. If you're a public company, there's more, right? So, any transformational technology like AI, you cannot do a big bang approach in a complex process. It's very risky because at the end of the day, you still have to close your books. At the end of the day, you need accurate quarter and 10K, 10Q reports. So you can't disturb that process just thinking of efficiency gain. So for any CFO who's thinking, I want to get a change, their probably second priority is AI. First priority is always continuity of the business. So what happens is every company needs to go try AI in their process, how it works, and what are the changes they need to do, what is the change management they have to go through. There will be few missteps. How do you correct it? How do you get to the maturity level? And every company has to go through this cycle. There is no shortcut to it. There is no blueprint that you can get it from another company and you can start using it. You have to go, you have to do the baby steps, go fail. And I'm not talking about the technology. I'm just talking about the change management that happens within your processes, right? Are you going to move people? Or do you have to reorg some of these finance functions? All those things needs to be evolved. And that is very specific to each company. So when you are actually moving fast, you are going through that cycle way before than anyone else. So you will be in a better position in a year or 2 years than rest of the companies where they are now going through that cycle. So that's the biggest advantage that companies get. So these companies which are moving fast, they will probably fail in few of the use cases, but they will have much more successful use cases and efficiency gains and productivity. And the biggest advantage I always see with AI is not about reduction of humans in the process. But particularly in finance, there are a lot of things that we don't do just because we don't have time. We have to do month-end close. We have to do all these audits. So all this work that we have to manually get it done, we don't have time for the rest of it. We don't have time to think about what really impacts my profits. What can I do? What is the insight that I can bring in so that my leaders can improve this? Those are the things we are not able to do it because of the time crunch. I think this is where once AI takes over a lot of manual work that we do in accounting and finance, now resources can be much more valuable. Now thinking about what else can be done so that we actually support the whole company.
And it used to be that the order of doing things was you had to work on your process and clean it up and fix it before you would implement a technology. Otherwise, you would just kind of be polishing up something that's not really pretty. But these days, are you seeing AI helping to improve the process? Or is it still the case that you really need to think about and clean up your processes before you think about implementing AI?
Right. So I have a thesis for this. I've written an article about this earlier, and probably from the last 20, 30 years, we heard this, right? If you have a bad process, don't put automation on it. You're just making the bad process run faster. I'm sure, Megan, you heard this numerous times, right?
Yeah.
But with AI, now the automation part has become way cheaper than what we have done earlier with bots, with code. Now, I think we're talking about 1/100th of the cost, right? Considering the human costs involved, considering the speed and everything. Now, if you start changing your process, that means you are allocating resources to change your process first and think about AI doing it. You are spending considerable time and effort changing your process and then putting AI on top of it. The total cost would be way higher than what you can actually achieve by just putting AI on your broken process. I'm not saying you should just put AI on your broken process, but there are a lot of things now has become way cheaper to experiment. So even if you have a broken process, you throw AI at it, see if that solves your problem, right? And I'm not talking about getting wrong data, but if you're getting accurate results, but the process is a little, you're doing in multiple ways, still if AI can do it, you can still achieve the same results. So the way AI is going to redesign process, and again, I'm talking about to mid to large companies, is I don't think we should just boil the ocean and think about, I'll just clean up all my data, I'll clean up my process. Rather than that, you can start introducing AI into various processes. See how those systems are working. And I'm talking about the system as humans and the data and all this system works. You can actually see how things are evolving and then make changes rather than going through the whole process transformation.
Really interesting. So when organizations say that they want to adopt AI in finance, what do they often misunderstand about what successful adoption actually requires?
I'm sure people have understood this, but most of the leaders actually think this is going to be a short-term process than an ERP implementation or the multi-year finance transformations. If you look at any large companies, ERP implementations usually take a couple of years. Or because you have to it's not about technology, you have to validate all the data, you have to do parallel runs during month ends, quarter ends, year ends, and make sure everything is right. And then you take it to production, right? With AI, it's actually the same thing. Though it's not as big as scale as changing your ERP, you're still taking each and every process. Now you're rewiring with AI, and then you have to test it. You have to test it extensively, how things are working. And then you can say, okay, now AI can take over with human in the loop. And you test more when you're in production, when you're running it, you're seeing if anything is happening. And then you can think about, do I really need human in the loop, or can this operate more autonomously? But for these things to happen, it has to be a step-by-step process. It can't be a big bang. And we have seen few cases where it just disrupts your current operations. And everyone in accounting and finance, we have to understand that we support the company's business, right? We support the revenue generation, we support the expenses. So something wrong with accounting and finance team is going to disrupt the whole operation of the company. And that is not the goal of doing an AI transformation. So we should be much more careful in taking those steps and adapting AI into the process. And that's what we keep telling all the CFOs as well. You start small, but you have to start now. right? You don't have to think about a really big project. Start small, but then think about how you can expand. And then the learnings will really help you to go exponential in how you can use AI in your processes.
Yeah, I'm sure that's great advice because if you want to start off with some grand project, it's probably somewhat overwhelming for a lot of CFOs and maybe causes them to actually never take the first step.
Yeah.
So, where are you seeing the fastest and most practical wins for AI inside of finance? Is it FP&A, treasury, controllership, tax? Where exactly are these quick wins?
We're seeing everywhere from AP process to AR, month-end close, controller tasks, tax and treasury and reporting, all those tasks. But I feel like reporting is probably an easy win, but I don't usually see a big ROI in using AI for reporting. People may disagree with me, but I just say in a lot of companies, and again, mid to large companies, people have already streamlined a lot of reporting activity. And there's a reason why they are that way, because we need controls, we need transparency in how things are done. So a lot of people jump into AI and they say, oh, we're generating these dashboards and reports. They are nice, but I don't think they are a great ROI. I'm not saying you should stop it, you should do it, but still, it's not a great ROI use case. Really, the biggest ROI comes from the activities that we do manually at this point of time. Even though with all the systems in place, there are still a lot of activities that are done. It could be accruals, it could be a reconciliation, it could be AP process, account receivables. Just as a few examples, right? If you have a person who's actually sending emails to all the vendors, asking them to send invoice, that's just a manual work, right? You're sending emails, then they respond, they're going to say, I'm going to send it tomorrow, or, we're delayed. And then again, someone needs to go and respond to it. All this process is the information exchange is way slower and manual. How about we let AI do that process where it automatically knows whom to email? When they respond, it automatically knows what to do with that data that is given in that email. And then is it an accrual entry that goes in there, or do I need a human to actually know about this information? This is just an example, right? And thinking about reconciliation work, there's a lot of reconciliations we do manually, even with a lot of systems right now around still things done manually in Excel, and then you upload them and you certify. I don't think that needs to be done manually anymore, where AI can actually do it. It can also generate all the intermediate data to give you the final result so that it's easy for you to verify what is all that intermediate data that is generated. So rather than you going and running the data, running the reports, getting the data, calculating them, putting it in Excel, now AI does all that work and gives you various traces of it. So that's easy for you to verify. So great wins for this. And I've also seen few of the use cases. Some of the use cases are very specific to industries where you do that only in that industry. It could be an insurance industry. It could be a medical devices industry. Those are the processes where you have to go verify contracts, verify a lot of customer data before you can say something about it. All that information are great wins, because till now, those processes were not automated. They're being done manually. You can actually pick those processes, and now you can use AI to solve them.
And you mentioned that you've worked with companies of different size. So obviously, mid-sized companies have fewer resources than large enterprises. So how should they be thinking differently about AI adoption so that they can compete effectively without overspending?
We have seen mid to large, from when I say mid-size, anything way above probably $100 million revenue. When a team is smaller, it's actually easy to go adopt a new technology or build on it. And that's what we have been focused. Now you have multiple teams and we don't know what the other team is doing for the same issue. And someone from IT, they just don't want multiple tools in the domain. So they are like, okay, can we standardize it? So there's a lot of conversations that happen. Mid-sized companies are where things can actually move faster. As I mentioned, actually adopting AI is way cheaper than what we all assumed. We all thought it's going to cost like a ERP. And Megan, you know how much companies pay for ERPs in a mid to large companies, right? Now, it is way cheaper than having a new ERP implemented because of the human costs involved, testing, and also business resources, the subscription costs. Now, rather than thinking about how much cost, I think every project as we do it, I think we should start thinking about ROI. And also, as you start taking these initial steps, it'll become very clear for you what is the ROI and how do we pick use cases. One of the way, and of course, we learned this hard way, is when we talk to a CFO, we always tell them, if you're going into the AI route, pick the most complicated use cases in your first phase. Don't pick nice to have. Those are not going to set the pace for your company in terms of AI adoption. Pick the hardest use cases and try to solve. And that's what we help them do it as well, because that actually sets the whole pace in the company in terms of once you take the most complicated case and you automate it, or now AI doing it, that becomes much easier for even for champions to actually expand the AI capability.
And you just touched on this a bit, but larger organizations obviously are dealing with legacy systems and more complexities. What do you see slowing those larger organizations down the most when it comes to AI adoption?
It's the usual culprits, right? In a large organization, there are more teams, more people. But what really helps is having an AI champion at the top of the organization. I've spoken to a few AI champion CFOs of these really large public companies who are 100% into AI. And they rally their teams to find ways how they can implement AI. It's not letting them know to leave security and everything aside. They are saying we need to figure out the use cases where we can implement AI safely and accurately. And now it's your job to go figure it out where we do it. And they are rallying their teams to do it. So having a top AI champion like a CFO or a CFO, CEO, that really helps for the whole company to actually go after this. Because as even if the CFO or a finance leader is very much into AI and they have a mandate to use AI, they need to make sure how that mandate is actually flowing down to all the levels. How are you taking the ideas from top down? Are you taking the ideas from the bottom up and see how things are working? One of the biggest limitation as the company grows is no one in the company actually knows an end-to-end process. And when I'm saying end-to-end, even if you think about the whole accounting data to finance, right? Like how from the data flows from revenue to various systems, various teams, and then finally goes into the reporting. No one actually knows the whole end-to-end system to think about, oh, we are doing this way. Can we actually skip these parts? Can we do this way? So that makes it really complex for someone to think through where we can use AI to speed up things for the whole end-to-end process. That's why large companies have traditionally used vendors to do it, to map those processes. But now with AI, things have become easier to take some parts of it and you can make it faster. And then you can also think about overall on top level, how do I take it from end to end and make it really easy? And we can take help of vendors to do that, or you can have an internal team that can go think through each and every process and see where it can be improved.
And I've heard from lots of CFOs who are concerned about data quality, controls, security. How should companies approach governance while still moving fast enough to capture value?
Right. I've seen this problem with many companies now. People are building wipe coded apps with the company data and they want to launch it. One of the complaints we hear is that who is going to ensure the data is right in all these apps? Who is going to ensure the data is accurate? I mean, I can build, let's say I'm a finance leader, I built an app. Who is going to test it that it is actually giving the right data, right? Someone needs to go test it and then you have controls. So that's the problem with now it became easy to build, but there's always that problem. Who's going to ensure that everything, the data is accurate in there? So making sure, even though giving that flexibility to end users to build things, but also having controls on testing and using it for reporting. I mean, for example, if I build my own, we can say I can use it for my needs, right? But if it needs to be more public, more communal within the company, then that needs to be tested. So having these guardrails, having those controls is very much necessary at this point of time, considering how easy it became to build different apps using AI.
And I'm curious, what do you think is more valuable, an AI tool off the shelf or building something internally? And maybe it's depends on the process or the company, but I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on something that you buy versus something that you build.
I think whatever I say, probably people will choose based on their needs and based on their priorities. At this point of time, I see there is a lot of inclination to build internally. It's because everyone is motivated to build. And also there is a fun of building things, right? If you're a non-technical person, if you're a finance user and you can build a dashboard without having that Power BI skill, or you're building a quick app that can do your AP, Those are the things that's exciting people a lot. So they are stretching and they're saying, let's build things internally. We can do it, which is great. There are a lot of simple apps that you can build. You can start using it. But there's a downside to it. As I mentioned, the simple apps you can build within a company, then you can start using it. But as the complexity increases, all the question comes in, right? Who's going to optimize it? Because the person, a non-finance user who built it, I don't think he will have time to optimize the whole flow. So then that needs to be done again by a pure technical person or someone in their team taking the ownership of it. So building internally, though it seems exciting as the company size is larger. So I always say if you're a smaller company, I think it makes total sense to build internally. But if you're a mid to large company and you're in an accounting and finance, again, your primary goal is not to build. Your primary goal is business continuity, to make sure your data is accurate, make sure your reporting is accurate. So doing that and also thinking about your processes and where AI can be used, that's probably gives a great value to your company and to your job than just building something and not going the total end to end of testing and productionalizing the stuff. So there are problems with the internal builds to summarize. And as the company grows big, it gets much more complicated to build internally. And one more point is about the feedback that I touched upon earlier. Let's say if I'm building things for multiple customers, then I'm getting feedback from multiple customers how to optimize a specific workflow. But if you're building that same thing internally, you're probably getting a feedback from only one user. And that user as well is very busy doing their month end close or quarter ends and audits. So your feedback is very sporadic. How do you even ensure that you have enough feedback in improving the product? So that's actually a major problem, major setback for building things internally.
And when you think about AI, how do you think it's going to reshape the skill sets needed in a finance team over the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years, if you can imagine out that far?
Again, this is my thesis because we are not sure if it's going to happen, what's going to happen in the next 4 years, right? Things can go change very rapidly. For a finance user or for an accounting user, you do need exposure to technology. You do need exposure to AI, but that's not going to be something that will differentiate you from other people. The biggest differentiating factor would be domain knowledge. And we are going back to the basics of it, right? If you're great at accounting and finance and you know specific industry that you're working in and you know what your company is doing and what are the factors that impact it, that is going to be the superpower for an accounting and finance user than the AI part. And I'm not underestimating the AI impact. I'm just saying when everyone learns AI, like it's going to be like an ERP skill, right? Every accountant need to know how to use an ERP. Even though you use one, you can easily go adapt to the next one, right? Now it became a very common thing among all the accountants and finance people. AI is going to be the same in the next few years, but what will differentiate is that the domain knowledge and your creativity and your analytical skills to ask the right questions to AI, get the answers, to prioritize things, and then give it to leadership or give it to teams that actually make decisions. That is going to be a superpower.
And last question, but looking at the top of the finance and accounting function, how do you see the role of the CFO evolving during that same period of time?
I've been thinking about this a lot, and it's not just about CFO, right? Any leader, let's say if I take a CFO of $1 billion revenue company and if I give him the most amazing AI agents to run its operations, when he actually run all these agents by himself in the next few years, right? The problem with that is, again, not the AI agents, but I always think as humans, we have context problem. That means our context is limited. You can't have multiple things going on in your brain at that point of time, right? We always like compartmentalize things and we do it. And we are taxed by the context switching as well. So a one person running a lot of things is, I think, going to be a limitation. That means we still need multiple people, multiple smart people in a company to run finance operations, or even it's a different kind of supply chain. You need multiple people to run it. And a lot of people are assuming it's going to be only CFO and they will be able to run it. But just based on what we have seen so far and extrapolating how things will change, I think you still need multiple people. You still need specializations of how things in a special function that really happens. And so that they do it perfectly well. with the help of AI.
Ashok, thank you so much for your insights and for taking the time to be here with me today.
Thanks, Megan. It has been a pleasure talking to you.
And thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time on CFO Weekly.
Thank you for listening to this episode of CFO Weekly. We hope you picked up some useful insights and strategies to help move your business forward. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you found it valuable, we'd love for you to leave a review and share it with your network. It helps us bring even more great content to finance leaders like you. For more episodes, resources, and to see how Personiv can support your accounting and finance needs, visit Personiv.com. See you next week.